everyone, and welcome to the Human Design Podcast with me, your host, Emma Dunwoody. I'm a qualified master coach and human behaviour specialist, as well as being a qualified human design coach. And I work with clients every single day to answer the big questions. Who am I? Why am I here? And what is my purpose? I also assist them to transition from the person they think they should be to the person they really are on the inside. I teach people how to actually live their design instead of just knowing it. And if this is something that you want to do too, well, stay tuned or reach out for private coaching or Human Design Unpacks, where I show you exactly how to live your design.
Hey everyone. I'm so excited to share with you something that we've been working on behind the scenes for a little while now. We've created the Millions of Millionaires project to support small businesses like mine to thrive as we move toward the new paradigm. This is going to be a time where there will be millions of us with businesses we love, supporting us to live the most abundant life. And from this place, serving the planet with our gifts, our superpowers, and the fulfillment of our purpose. With this sponsorship program, it is our intention to build millions of millionaires through experiencing, engaging with, and supporting like-minded entrepreneurs and business owners who share our values and vision by holding space for them to showcase their businesses, products, and services with you to ultimately assist you in your journey to becoming the most aligned version of you. I have worked really hard to build this amazing audience who are incredibly engaged. They're driven to heal, to learn, and to grow. And of course, you're all diehard human design fans. And I want to make sure that you're across all the brilliant services, tech, products, and individuals that are bringing this planet into the new paradigm. I would love to see millions of millionaires creating their abundant lives and paying it forward in my lifetime, and of course for millennia to come. So if you have a product, service, or even event you'd like to share with this amazing audience, then please email Taylor, my rockstar operations manager, at support@emmadunwoody for all the details and data. Okay, without any further ado, let's jump into our first ever sponsor on the Millions of Millionaires project. So I'm going to introduce you to Sarah Wilder and her incredible human design inspired aura type jewelry collection. I actually received mine a few weeks ago and I absolutely love it. I've had it on the boys trying on the talisman ring that I've got. And it looks great on them as well. I think even my eldest is quite keen to get one. Now, this collection of Sarah's was created to inspire those who feel a deep resonance with human design, but feel overwhelmed with all the information. And, sometimes they don't really know where to start with their deconditioning and embodiment journey. These talismans act as a daily anchor or a portal to the various potential within us. Each one is designed with intention, infused with a story, and assigned themes to help focus your mind and help you to remember who you truly are and what it is you are wanting to manifest or cultivate more in your life. We all know that where focus goes, energy flows. If we are serious about embodying our truth and aligning with who we really are, then practical and symbolic tools like these talismans to wear on your body daily can be a great way to bypass the monkey mind and connect to your subconscious to create real, tangible change over time. The front of the design is a richly symbolic image that contains the energies of each aura type. This alone is a great tool for daily contemplation, connection, and self-divination. The back has the keywords that remind you of your strategy and your aura type, which many of us forget, especially in the beginning of our experiment. This is more than just jewelry. It is a self-divination and direction tool, a practical anchor for your daily rituals that help guide you back home to yourself. Each talisman comes with a meaning card you can place on your sacred space and connect with your daily devotional practices. They come in a ring or a pendulum form with 3 ring sizes, all adjustable to cover most finger sizes. They are all sterling silver, so it will last you a lifetime. If this sounds something that you want to get in on, then use the code HD podcast at the checkout for 15% off this collection. Obviously, we are going to put the link in the show notes. And I really just want to share with you, I am loving my ring. It really does give me this, what is it? Like, it brings me back to the now. It brings me back to who I really am. It's really funny. Often when I put it on in the morning, it's sitting there next to my moisturizer, and I can literally see on the inside, MG, wait to respond and inform. And it reminds me to slow down, to take a breath, and remember that I'm in response. I don't need to have to force it. So if you want to check out the ring for you, and by the way, I have a medium to large sized ring. As I said, it fitted both of my boys and also fitted just on his pinky finger. Then all you got to do is go follow the link in the show notes, use the code HD podcast, and you're going to receive a 15% off this aura type jewelry collection from Sarah Wilder. So go check it out. Hey, everyone, and welcome to today's podcast. Now, today we have the next in the Centers series. We're going to be talking Ajnas. And I have the amazing Taylor with me today. Welcome, Taylor.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
It's absolute pleasure. Okay, so obviously Taylor's going to be the defined Ashna. I'm the undefined Ashna. Do you want to just remind everyone of your type and authority while we're here? Maybe your profile as well.
Sure. I'm a 5/1 manifesting generator, Sacral Authority, defined Ajna, and if it's helpful, undefined head.
Love that. Awesome. So today, in this series, what we're going to be talking about is the Ajna. I'm obviously going to be contributing my experience with an undefined Ajna. Oh my God, the smell. I'm trying not to cough. Okay. So I'm going to be contributing my experience with the undefined Ajna. And I want you guys to remember, as we spoke about in the first episode of this series, we want to understand that when we have a defined center, it's about building trust in ourselves, in our own energy. When we have an undefined center, it's about building trust in the universe, something greater than us, building trust in the inconsistency and the unknown. All right, let's dive straight in. Taylor, actually, before I do that, let's just have a quick chat about the Ajna. The Ajna is where we talk about answers. We think, we process thinking, we come up with solutions, we come up with ideas. It's very cerebral. It's this part of our design that you will hear me refer to as our outer authority. It's where our wisdom, the wisdom and consistency that we have within the Ajna, we want to be conscious that it's not for us to make decisions with. It's actually part of our superpower of how we serve and have an impact. So today I really want to understand what are the specific differences between having it defined and undefined, keeping in mind that depending on what gates and channels you have activated, that's going to give you a more nuanced theme. But I really want to help people at this simpler level of really understanding the thinking, the rationalizing, the answers, that sort of thing that comes from this defined head center. Defined Ajna. So Taylor, do you consider yourself as a thinker or a cerebral person?
100%. Yes, always. And one of the things that I remember mentioning when we did this in HDX on the panel was that, and I know we distinguish like the difference between being like a thinker and like a logical person, but one of the things that I've always been told is like that I'm such a logical, like thinking person. Like people will come to me for my reasoning. So yes, I'm definitely a thinker. My mind is always thinking.
Yeah, I love that. And it's right. Like one of the things I found really fascinating about the panel and like hearing you talk about it in depth was the process, that there is this, and we don't necessarily mean, I'm just going to say it again, we don't necessarily mean logical circuitry. We mean that there's a process, like 1, then 2, then 3. One foot goes in front of the other, in front of the other. As an undefined person, I don't have any of that process. Like it just pops in. And the more I trust the emptiness or the not knowing or the confusion or the mess, the more I receive what I need to receive in the mind. But I certainly don't have a clear process. And I love that, this is something that we hear from the defined Ajna, that they do identify with being cerebral. One of the things that I thought was fascinating in the panel and in my experience is with an undefined Ajna, when I was younger, I definitely thought I was stupid. I was diagnosed with dyslexia. You guys know that story. I had a belief system that I was stupid. And it was part of the fact that I couldn't understand what people wanted from me. I didn't understand how they got to a certain conclusion, because the answers for me would just pop in, like they would just pop in, but that wasn't good enough. I had to know how I got there. And that was a bigger challenge for me. One of the other things I thought was really interesting is that on the panel, the undefined Ajnas, we all talked about a time in our past where we felt that we did identify with being very cerebral, until we started to understand that, our thinking, although a gift, it is not this process. It's not this logical, like a computer, zeros and ones that's always running, that's potentially 3 steps ahead. It's more about being in the now and allowing whatever it is to pop in. And do you resonate with that, Taylor, that yours is more of an ongoing process?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's very methodical, like you were saying. It's very like zeros, ones, like a computer. I think I even used that analogy on the panel, was that my mind feels like a app or something that's always running in the background. And whenever I need access to it, it's just like you open the app or you open the computer, you run the software. It's just always there. It's reliable and it's very methodical. There's a step to everything. There's a process to everything. I'll very often build processes and systems in my mind before they're ever called out of me. It's pretty wild, actually.
Yeah, it's so cool. I love it. It's, I think the way we work together really relies on that defined Ajna of yours, because there's no process up here. There's wisdom, but there's no process.
Lots of wisdom.
Yeah, thanks. So the Ajna Center is really all about questions, ideas, solutions, and thinking. How does it feel when you're thinking things through? Like, I know you've said it's kind of methodical. Do you see it coming? Do you have to, that's a better question. Like, do you have to be actively involved, or is it something that, like, I think you've kind of alluded to, that it's actually going on behind the scenes and then you get to tap into it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And I think if I'm thinking too much about thinking, then I'm in an unresourceful mode of thinking, if that makes sense. Like, if I'm having to think about my thinking, like, oh, I got to think this through, then I know that I'm in my ego or a story, or ruminating over something that I shouldn't be ruminating over, because thinking happens so natural for me. I don't have to think about it.
Yeah.
It's one of those really super weird things. And so it just sort of happens in the background and I don't really have to do anything about it. And if I'm getting too like involved in the thinking process, then I'm like, oh, I'm in a story, I'm in my ego, or something that's going on here.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. Because it just feels like it's that thing that is just doing its magic in the background. And as an undefined Ajna, I know that if I apply pressure to myself to try and even access my thinking that way, as in going in and being like, okay, so what's the logical next step? Like, that in itself can almost feel a little bit overwhelming to me. One of the greatest gifts of getting to know myself and my growth journey is learning just really to let go of the mind and not try to see its processing and not try to understand how it got there, or where it's going for that matter. I certainly resonate with being very different to your experience. And I know we actually use your, for maybe the want of a better word, we use your Ajna a lot in the processes of the business, because, I'll often be like, this is what I want to create, or this is my, where I'm being guided, or what do you think of this? And watching the way in so many cases, you've already come up with that strategy in some way or that structure. You know, it blows my mind, because if I try to actually build that, like trying to build those things before, you know, before Taylor and after Taylor, like that was hard. I found that really challenging.
And then to add to that though, I'm glad you brought that up, because it feels like flow when you ask what it feels like I'm not having to think about it. It's like I'm in the middle. I do a lot of work on computers, right? So I'll be in the middle of something, and then it's like the next step just kind of comes, like it goes through my brain and then my hands do it. You know what I mean? I don't have to think too much about it. It's like the process is in there and it just delivers it to me, like to my physical body. Like, here's what you do next. Here's what you do next. And if I have to stop and really think about it, I'm like, oh, what's going on? Because that doesn't happen.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love that. I love that. Oh, and I can even feel the order of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't have the experience of the order of it. Even if I'm following a structure, let's say building, I don't know, a launch process or something like that, like trying to build it in the past. And I'm across of planning. So structure is part of what I do. You know, it's part of the energy that I put out in the world. But what's really interesting that I'm hearing from you is like there's this flow of this, then this, then this, then this. And I literally have to follow something external of me. So I need to get it out of my head and either put it in a flow chart or follow someone's, you know, process, or see it external of me before I can follow it. Like within my head, I can't follow it. And yeah, because that's like the opposite of what you do, right?
Yeah. And I also have internal vision too. So that's really interesting also, is that I see it within like, I don't need to put it on a piece of paper because I can see it in my own mind.
Yeah, I love that. And I'm external vision. Isn't that funny? Like I have to bring everything out to make sense of it. So I want to sort of understand how, like, or your relationship with coming up with answers. Like for me personally, being undefined, like if I pressure myself to find an answer or to have an answer, or you know, I'm in a classroom, let's say, and they value knowing the answers, I immediately feel a pressure, and it's like my thinking disappears. Like there is no answer. I can't access it. The way I access answers with an undefined Ajna is just being like, it'll come to me. You know, I use that mantra, it'll come back to me. You know, I have to be very aware that applying pressure to my thinking actually pushes things away. How does it feel, you know, when you're coming up with answers or ideas pop in, or this process starts to kick off, this flow starts to kick off? How does that feel? Like, do you feel okay with the pressure, or tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, the pressure doesn't bother me. The pressure, so this is the distinction that I thought was really powerful between the head and the Ajna on the panels, was I have an open head, and the pressure to come up with like questions is like, I don't know, like I never asked questions when I was, you know, in school, but I always had the answer. And so I think that that's the difference, right? Is when someone wants an answer from me on something, I don't feel like this sense of, oh my God, like pressure. If I don't know the answer, then I'll ask for time, you know, be like, I don't know, let me get back to you. And I will find out, like, I will find out the answer. Don't worry. I will. Yeah. I'm a nose. And I think I feel a pressure to find the answer quickly if I don't know the answer, if that makes sense. Like, you know, if somebody asks me, like, can you find out about this? It's like, I feel like I have to figure it out right then. So I feel that kind of pressure, but I can access the answer to something I already know relatively quickly. You know, and I often make jokes about, like, I talk about my subconscious brain as if it's a person, or whatever part of me it is that pulls the answers out of my brain and throws it into nowhere. Like the other day, you know, one of my friends asked me like, do you remember the address that I lived at 3 years ago? And it took like 3 seconds, and I was like, yeah, it's this. And she was like, I have no idea how you do that. But I didn't feel under pressure of like, I have no idea. You know, I was like, no, I know the answer. It was this. It just took me a second.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love it. And even, you know, like when I notice my process to go back and remember things, like it takes time. And the more I try to think about it, I can't grasp it, you know? And what I'm hearing is like, it's almost like you just need to kick the cogs into gear and set the intention of this is what I want to pull out of there, and it comes. Whereas if I go that way about it, then I push it further away rather than bring it closer to me. I think that's fascinating. One of the cool things about having a defined Ajna is that you really are impacting and influencing the thinking in the room, in the group. We heard on the last podcast when Susan was talking about defined head, how this is kind of shown up for her, you know, in the work that she does, that she no longer really has to declare her ideas because she sees her ideas now coming into fruition within a group or influencing the room. Do you feel like your thinking and your process of thinking, your ideas, your solutions, like, do you feel like they pop up without you saying a word?
Absolutely. Yeah, 100%. I'll often be thinking of something, and it could be as simple as, I think I mentioned this on the panel too, when I said I use the superpower for good only, like implanting thoughts into other people's heads, is like, I'll be thinking about what I want for dinner, or, something like that. And, my roommate or friends or whoever I'm with will be like, what about this? And I'll be like, yes, it worked.
I love it.
Or there's often times where I'll, people talk about, their life and their problems and things that are going on in their world and things they want solutions to. And it's not always appropriate to like interject your opinion or what you're thinking. Kind of letting people come to their own conclusions. And I find that a lot of times I'll be thinking of an answer to something like, you should really just do this, and be like, oh, I should just do this. And I'm like, okay, you got my telepathic message there. I think it's like telepathy is how I would describe it, is just your thinking, other people picking up on your thinking. And I am, since discovering human design, very aware of how my thinking impacts the room or the people that I'm with. And so I have to be really aware of that, because it can be not such a good thing too. If I'm in a really like low place or thinking about things that are unresourceful or negative, then it influences the people around me. And it's kind of a weird space to be in. Like it feels almost like, wow, my mind has that much power.
Yeah.
So to be really, it's forced me to become really aware of my own thoughts, and not only how they're impacting me, but how they're impacting other people.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you've taken responsibility for your thinking. I mean, one of the big things to note is that wherever we're defined, we do need to take responsibility for the influence we're having, because, whether it's our emotions, our thinking, our identity, we're impacting others. We are having an influence on the other. And at some point, we do need to take responsibility for that impact that we're having. But to think or to talk from the place of being undefined in the Ajna, one of the things that I think is fascinating is that I can see the world from every perspective. Like I can see where everyone's coming from. I can understand different attitudes, different perspectives, different belief systems. I can really, get a grasp of that in a resourceful way that really helps me see where people are coming from. One of my superpowers as a kid is I always, like, what I would do by default is, like, if I didn't understand why someone would react or respond some way, I would put myself in their shoes and I'd be like, oh, that makes sense. And I think the G Center also does that in my design, but it definitely, the head and the Ajna, that's been one of the great superpowers, is compassion, empathy, and understanding where other people are coming from. I think one of the challenges of being undefined, you talk about you being influencing the room, is that, my thinking, especially if I'm in an emotional low, or I'm tired, or I'm in a place where I've gone unconscious and maybe reactionary, that I can literally flip. Like, I can be so influenced by other people's thinking that I can flip from one to the other, to the other, to the other. And I can feel like the feeling is confusion, this awful, uncomfortable feeling of confusion. Like, who am I? What do I think? What do I know? And, in the past, I would turn that on myself. Like, well, you should know what you think. You should know what you believe. And, that was a way that I sort of self-criticized and judged myself. Whereas now I'm very aware that if I'm in that confusion state, I'm identifying with other people's beliefs or ideas or opinions, instead of just being curious about them and, taking what resonates and letting go of what doesn't. I think that anyone who has, they're undefined in the head or the Ajna. They just have to be super aware of that, because you will easily get into confusion when you're identifying with all of the other thinking that's going on in the collective consciousness.
100%.
So, next question. Do you notice, I've already answered that. One of the things I'm curious about, I've already touched on it for me, is like I feel that there's this swing that when I try to, I'm going to use the word control the mind, what it actually does is it flips me into confusion. From a behavioral point of view, whenever we're in control or we're trying to control something, that means that we're missing internal certainty, which kind of leads me back to what I said in the beginning, because my Ajna is undefined. The best way for me to really get the most out of my mind and my thinking is to be really comfortable with uncertainty and trusting that the universe will drop in whatever I need to drop in at the time. But to be honest, a lot of the time in my head, it feels messy. It feels confusing. I know for me that with an undefined Ajna, I often recommend people, you can kind of do any meditation, but the end goal is to learn to quiet the mind, to let go of thinking, to be in a place where not only can you step back from your thinking and watch it move past you, but also be able to let go of thinking, to slowly but surely build the muscle of being in the body. And just, if the mind is quiet, then let the mind be quiet. One of the things that I've, experimented a lot with people with defined Ajnas is offering the guidance to experiment with a mantra, like meditating with a mantra, so that the puppy dog, i.e. the mental processing, has something to do or has something to focus on. I think one of the other things that's really important to understand with the defined Ajna is that you are designed to think. It is designed to be a mind that is, ticking all of the time, and being confident or being sure not to judge yourself if you can't quieten it. That is a really big part of having a defined Ajna. Do you want to talk a little bit about that? Like, have you had a journey of meditation, learning to quiet it, maybe understanding that it's never going to be quiet and you can just sit and watch it? Like, do you want to talk a little bit to that journey of how you sit with your mind and get the most out of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I love that you brought that up, because I struggled with meditation for the longest time, and because I always judged myself that I couldn't make my mind quiet, because that's the messaging around meditation is quiet your mind, just calm the monkey mind, or eliminate your thoughts, or, all of those things. And I'm sitting there like, I can't do that. I can't, I sit down at a meditation, and if I'm trying to quiet my thoughts, or when I would try meditation in the past, I would just get riddled with anxiety, because the process of trying to quiet my mind was so difficult that I thought I was doing something wrong. I was like, well, I guess I'm just a thinker and I can't stop it, and something must be wrong with me. And it gave me anxiety, and I was like, I'm not going to do this. And then even guided meditations, and this was another really cool distinction we made on the panel, was the mantra has been so helpful. First of all, just having like a word or a phrase or just one thing that I repeat over and over and over. But guided meditations still don't work for me, because what happens is, because that was the next thing I went into, was like, I tried to do like the still meditating, and I was like, that's not going to work. And then I tried doing guided meditations, and what I would find would happen is I would eventually just tune out whoever the person was talking, and my own mind would take over and be like, blah, 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 talking to itself. And then when I started doing like transcendental meditation with a mantra or a word or a phrase, I think the difference is that it's my own mind saying it to itself. Yes. And it's not, somebody else outside of me saying it, and then, my mind takes over. It's like literally my mind is the one, like, so it's giving, like you said, the mind something to do.
Yeah, I love that. And that was a really powerful distinction on the panel, that there was that difference between the undefined Ajnas. We were all like, yeah, something external of us, great. And the defined Ajnas were like, no, something internal. It's got to be, within the machine, if you like, within the computer.
Yeah, you have to give it an input, for the output that you want, because otherwise it just takes over and it grows legs of its own and, does its thing. And then there was a lot of shame and like judgment around that for me too. I was like, why can't I quiet my mind? And, I think I chalked it up to just being like an anxious person. Like because I think there's a lot of messaging out there about like overthinking and being like thinking too much equals like you're an anxious person.
Yeah.
And so I think I manifested that to life just by hearing that in like mainstream messaging.
Yeah, look, I agree. And I think if we just look at the code of anxiety is the fear of the future, so you're actually getting anxiety about not being able to control your thinking, yet not needing to control your thinking is the superpower. Like letting the computer run the zeros and ones is the thing that brings all of this beautiful mind structure, not only to whatever work you're doing as an MG, but to the world, to us, to the team, to the business, And I think it's a really important point that you make, like the shame that people feel. I know Susan spoke yesterday, like she now just lets herself be a thinker, and it's a real shift in her identity and understanding that you don't need to stop yourself thinking. Just like one of the areas of shame and the way I would criticize myself when I was doing depression and panic disorder was because I couldn't order my thinking, because these fucking things would just pop into my head and I'd be like, oh my God, I thought I'd done that. I thought I'd healed that. But what I didn't realize at the time was that I was living in a place that was low consciousness. There was a lot of mental health issues. I was working, supporting my parents in their business, and a lot of their team were either depressed or they had mental health issues. So my undefined Ajna was constantly exposed to it, and I was criticizing myself because I couldn't order my mind, yet my mind is not designed to be ordered. So I think that this is, again, it just brings us full school back to that place where understanding what is true for us is the journey, is important, and putting to rest the guilt, shame, and judgment that we carry from the conditioning from the external world, or how we compare ourselves to others, or whatever that shadow aspect is the important thing. Really understanding what is true for us, what's alignment for us. So I want to finish on one question that I forgot to ask, or I hadn't come up with until a couple of panels into the HDX panels. But I want to ask you, what is the superpower of your defined Ajna?
I love that question. And I had a feeling you were going to ask me that. And so today, and this was not on purpose, but I actually want to share this with you because it was really like serendipitous. And I want to read you something, because awesome. It was like today, that I decided. I was like, I woke up and I was like, I need to get my journal out and like actually, like I have such a hard time journaling, but I'm like, I need to make myself do it. I know it's just resistance. And so I got my journal out that I have, and I didn't want to start a new one because it only has a few pages like full. And I opened it to this random page, and it was from June of 2020. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. And I just happened to open it to this one page, and I read this paragraph, and I was like, I literally spoke my design, not only my design, but I literally spoke my defined Ajna in that paragraph. Oh my God, and just the fact that I opened it to that today without thinking about it, I was like, I'm going to have to read this or like say this in some way. And I feel like this is like, I just want to read this to you and to everyone listening, that this is what I wrote 2 years ago now. I said, I see myself as a creator, a builder. I hear someone's idea, vision, or question and think of the exact steps needed to make it come to life. I've never thought of myself as creative in the artsy sense, but I'm definitely creative at building systems, writing concepts in ways that are easy to understand, and making concepts come to life to bring together a vision. And I was like, I literally just spoke my defined Ashna in that paragraph. Oh, and I think that's the superpower of it, right? Is like not so much like the unresourceful thinking, but allowing the thinking mind to bring concepts to life in a way that can be communicated or structured or built out in a way that makes sense. I think that's a superpower.
I love it. And, instantly when I hear that, I think it's like, yeah, it's taking things from concept to materialism, like into reality. Oh my God. So good. So good. I've got goosebumps head to toe as well. I love that. So what would be the superpower of my undefined Ajna? Well, I've always been really grateful for my ability to put myself in other people's shoes. I think the greatest gift and superpower of my undefined Ajna is to be open to other people's ideas, opinions, views, thinking. You know, I remember reading the city of the Gate 17. I've got the Gate 17, which is the gate of opinion. And I can't remember what the word is that he used, but the highest expression is that opinion actually dissolves, that everything is worthy. There is no right or wrong. There is no black or white. It just is. And there's a sense of curiosity. And I think that is the superpower of my undefined Ajna, is that there are no limits. There are no judgments. There is just this wide open curiosity to experience the mind in whichever way that is. And that, I believe, is a massive gift. So I just need to stay out the fuck away from it. Stop trying to manipulate it and change it, and just let it deliver all of these amazing insights that just flow in, either through my 43 or through my 17, or whatever else is going on. So yeah, that's my superpower. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Thank you everyone who is listening. This series, obviously we've got a number of other centers to go, but it's really fun and exciting to bring this to all of you. So thanks again for joining, Taylor.
Thank you. It was fun.
I'm sure you'll be on another one very soon, no doubt. And thanks everyone for listening. I trust you enjoyed it. And yeah, I'll hear you on the next one. Bye for now.
Thanks everyone for being here all the way to the end of the podcast. I hope you got lots of value out of it. I certainly had a lot of fun doing it. Could I please ask that you share this podcast with friends if you found it valuable? And also, bonus points, could you leave a review for me as well on Apple? It would be greatly appreciated. If at any point you would like to be on the podcast, or you've got questions that you'd like me to discuss on the podcast, by all means get on my socials and DM me. Everything you need is there in the show notes. Have an awesome day. Bye for now.